What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Indie Sooner. It is your boy JP of the JP and Trav Show. And below me, we got my man Trav. How you feeling, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Doing great. Been having a good week and looking forward to a good weekend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And to my right and above Travis, we have our good friend Ty Hayes of Around the Table Sports. Most recently crowned an up and comer by late kick Josh Pate. So
The
big
king, the
time,
king.
big pay, big time man over here to our right. Thanks for joining us today, Ty. How you doing, man?
Man, you already know I love coming on this. This is always a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. And yeah, that was wild because I've basically looked up to Pate, right? I mean, he's brilliant at what he does, but also from someone who's done like speaking events in the past, like he's an amazing orator. The way he structures points from pacing and even eye contact, like looking away for a bit and then looking back to recapture and really drive home a point. The guy's phenomenal at what he does. So that was awesome being recognized by him. That was just great.
Yeah, he's the best in the game. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's funny because I've always been, Pate State and whatnot, and I've just always enjoyed his stuff. And I just keep on thinking, like, there's no way that CBS can afford to keep him, or 247 can afford to keep him, because he's the best in the industry at what he does, and he's going to. I don't know. Maybe Academy's paying him enough or something, but he's going to get one of these massive contracts. I'd rather listen to him talk about it than anybody on Barstool or any of the major networks or anything like that. No, he's fantastic. He actually owes me a couple phone calls. He keeps on DMing me because we're talking about radio stuff and NIL stuff and all that, and he's like, every time like I comment on a post, it's like he DMs me. He's like, "Crap, I forgot to call you. I'm sorry. I'll call you." So he owes me a phone call. I need to maybe if I tell him that I'm on with you occasionally, that he'll actually call me. So we'll see.
Yeah, I actually need to get back in contact with him as well. But man, that guy's so busy.
Oh yeah,
But once you talk to him, man, he's great. He's so awesome to talk to. He gave me a ton of great advice. He's just a really good dude. Like, they always
yeah.
say don't meet the people you look up to, but that was awesome getting to talk to him because he was just so willing to offer any advice, hear any question, and like time wasn't an object to him when he was on the phone with me. So, really great dude as well.
Yeah, he's a star, no doubt. Well, we're glad to have you on, man. I appreciate it.
Man, thank you so much for having me. It's always a great time.
Yes, sir. Today, guys, we're just gonna kind of get into spring ball, right? It's kind of full fledged and around the corner. Generally, we're gonna talk about Oklahoma spring, but Ty, I'm sure I'll at some point tonight kind of ask you what you're hearing on your side of things in your neck of the woods with Alabama, and how you guys are looking as well. But we know you're a closet Sooners fan as well, so I know you have some things to share um, with Sooner Nation from what you've seen and even videos you've done. So just quickly, Trav, what are your expectations of the Sooners this spring? What are you hoping to see kind of pan out by the spring game?
Well, first and foremost, really the intensity and the physicality and whatnot. I mean, you saw Jay Valai and Brandon Hall were really intense running their drills. Bates was big into teaching. It's been cool to actually be able to get the media access that we never got before to really see how these guys run practice. Venables pulls the defensive line over. They're not running the drill how he wants them to run the drill or with the intensity that he wants. He goes over there, gets in their asses, stuff like that. I mean, first day of spring practice, he's in there and setting the tone, bringing that excitement. It's not all just for show. It's not all for Twitter videos or anything like that. It's actual intensity, right? So
Yeah.
I just look for them to. I'm a big trust the process guy. Like even when I was starting to work out with my trainer, it was all about trusting the process. Like he asked me, like, "Oh, is there a certain amount of weight you'd like to lift? Is there a certain amount of whatever, right?"
Yeah.
And I was like, my goal is just to be here every day and understand that, like, just trust the process. Like, I'm paying you to train me. If I'm here every day, then I should be in good shape, right? I mean, that's theoretical, right? So it's really just falling in love with the process that I'm looking from the team, is understanding that these are professional coaches, these are proven coaches. The defensive staff alone that they brought on has 13 combined national title appearances. They know what a champion looks like. They know how to develop a champion. So just trust the coaches, buy in completely, which Venables has said he's been really impressed with the buy-in early, and yeah, just trust the process from there. You put your head down and work hard enough. By the time you look up, like you're where you wanted to be in the first place, maybe even farther.
Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely, Ty. Give me your thoughts of what you, even as a little bit of an outsider, are looking to see from the Sooners this spring. I gotta go grab my charger, so y'all go ahead.
So it's interesting, man, that you said trust the process, because being an Alabama fan, right, that's something that's drilled in to like not only Bama fans, but especially that team. And from the outside looking in, that's a cultural aspect that Brent Venables absolutely brings to the table. And I was telling Indy before you got on, I was at the Pylon 7-on-7 this past weekend, and I got to talk to Ashton Cozart. And one of the questions I asked him was, okay, well, you've always liked OU from what he was telling me. And the main question I had was, what was the green light moment for this new staff where you were like, okay, I've always felt OU, but this new staff, they've got it together. I want to do this. And he kept talking about the culture Brent Venables was putting forth, the family aspect and the expectations that were being laid forth. And expectations being laid forth are an incredibly positive things to culture, because it's an understanding of what needs to be done every day and laying the foundation for that process. And so, hey,
Got a little
guest appearance.
little guest here. This is Amaya. Sorry to cut everybody off.
Hey, Maya.
But
Well, hello.
she just come to say hello before she goes to bed. Say hi. Hi, everybody on the JP and Trav show.
Got
Hi,
a
Uncle
real
Trav.
special guest. Got a real special guest.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's 2 weeks old, just about, and doing good. So we're in the NICU for those of you who don't know, for about 11 days. And everybody on the show, was praying for her, and she's doing real well and growing. And we've been home since about Friday now. So, I was excited to get her on the show and let her say hello to everybody. But yeah.
Well, everybody's saying hi in the comments too. She got a lot of love. She got a big family already.
She's just oozing on through.
Yeah, all right. Daddy's got to do a show. All right, love you. All right. All right, continue.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
from the outside looking in, it's just the cultural aspect is so tangible and it's palpable, right? Like, not even having gotten to talk to anybody extensively in there, it's just palpable what's going on. And you look at the coaches hired, to Travis's point, and you have not only experience, but the way that they've crafted programs before and expectations. I think there's a reason why there's so much excitement, and there's so much justified excitement for the Sooners. So I'm really excited for everything to get started.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like a regular coaching hire. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like I don't want to hate on other schools, but like it doesn't feel like Billy Napier, and I'm a big Napier guy. Like I thought that was the right hire at Florida. Like, it doesn't feel like – I don't think if Luke Fickell comes to town, like, it's the same. Like, I don't think he's able to get the same staff. I think that's one thing with Venables is he had the respect of so many coaches, and he had worked with so many coaches that loved him, and he'd won at a high level, at the highest level, multiple times, that I think he was able to assemble a staff because people who have worked with him are like, yeah, I can work for that guy. I would love to work for that guy. And I think that's so important. You don't have to – so often we see a guy gets a job, he's got to show something, and then he starts to get those elite coaches. For him to get elite positional coaches, national champion appearing position coaches in his first ever head coaching job, and these guys are all bought in on him. There's not many coaches in the country that could have pulled that off.
Yeah. No, you're right. And to both of your guys' points, Trav and I have been talking about it ad nauseum since he got hired. Brent Venables is not your average first time head coach, right? Like he had 29 years of prior coaching experience at the defensive coordinator position, primarily under 3 Hall of Fame coaches, right? Bill Snyder, Bob Stoops, and everybody knows Dabo Sweeney is going to be a Hall of Famer when his time is done. So he has those 3 influences, which he talks about on the regular, right? If you've seen him on Oklahoma Breakdown or even just his press conferences and the nuggets of wisdom that just drip out of his mouth, like you can tell the influence that those 3 have had on him. And again, I'm not saying that he's going to be the next Saban. I'm not going to go that far, but you can just tell there's something different about him and that he took a piece from each one of these Hall of Fame coaches and he's concocting it into his own thing, right? He's going to use what they have, but he's also going to make it his own. And he's got, like Trav said, coaches that are under him that have some weight to them themselves, that know good coaching and that know what's special. And they've all said, this guy is different. This guy knows what he's doing. And so I'm just excited to see it on the field, right? Because obviously he can talk about it all day. And, we're not Texas over here. We're not just trying to have talking season the whole time. So I'm excited to see it on the field. But, it's cool to talk about it too. So I'm right there with y'all.
Always with the shots. I love it.
Hey.
Yeah, and it's and you really just look at, let's just use Todd Bates as an example. Who else is Todd Bates going to coach for if he leaves Clemson? Like who can pull Todd Bates away from Clemson? Like basically the only 2 options realistically would be Saban or his buddy Brent Venables. Like you're pulling a recruiter of the year, an incredible, proven, great track record coach, person, everything. He wouldn't have gone to coach under Grinch. He wouldn't have gone to coach under Riley. He would not. Like, so the fact that that's where kind of the proof is. If you have a guy that is able to pull these guys that previous staffs couldn't even pull, and other top end country, like Bates wouldn't go coach at Michigan, wouldn't go coach at Notre Dame. Like but we pulled him here because of Brent, and you're just able to just cultivate that and just be like, you're starting, you just have the privilege of starting a couple steps ahead because you don't have to prove to get in those elite coaches. You can start with elite coaches.
Yeah, I raised my hand when you said Bates because I talk about Bates for y'all, consistently. And I've always prefaced it with saying, look, I don't think you can point me to a bad hire that Brent Venables has done. I just don't see it. But that even being said, and one, I am biased to defensive football, right? I've always been a little bit biased to that side of the ball. 2, I'm double biased when it comes to Bates because he played for my Tide, right? So I've got love for that guy and just want him to succeed. But I talk about him so much because you don't get that guy every day. Like that's a hire that you hear about once in a blue moon because guys like him, they don't make lateral moves ever. I mean, this is a guy who's on a fast track to be a name for a defensive coordinator job soon, and he took a defensive line coach job with Brent Venables. To Travis's point, outside of Saban and Brent Venables, maybe Georgia, and that's a maybe, right? Because I don't know any prior relationship with Kirby that he has outside of just knowing being with the Tide and Kirby's real. But even then, right? That's a maybe. The fact that we're having a conversation and we can theoretically put 3 teams up there answers the question in and of itself.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. You guys are spot on. I mean, Todd Bates he's that dude. Now, obviously, Miguel Chavez with him in that room is, those 2 are ridiculous.
I love
And they're
John.
great, and they're great dudes too, right? Which I think is too just a big piece of what Brent Venables is building, right? He's building that legitimate family culture. With Riley, I think I always said like, oh, Riley's about family and whatnot, and that turned out to be a facade. This is real. You can tell it's real and it's palpable. So, it's great to get not only great coaches in there, but great guys, I think, as well. Um, let's switch a little bit of gears. We'll come back to the spring stuff in another section here in a little bit. Recruiting news. Have you heard anything, Travis, and even you, Ty, because I know you dabble a little bit on the recruiting side. Have you guys heard anything as far as recruiting news or rumors or anything like that the past week or so? Trav, I know we did the OU rumors and news space last night. I had to dip out a little early, so maybe there's something I missed.
Yeah, nothing specifically groundbreaking necessarily, outside of just the sheer amount of visitors for this weekend. This will be probably the most substantial group of visitors on unofficial visits that OU has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it's so new. Like, Venables is new to the program. Like, it's amazing that in such a short amount of time, he's been able to make Venables and the coaching staff has been able to make these relationships specifically with the defense. I mean, we have multiple 5-star defensive linemen alone coming into town. And I think what's important for people to understand the difference between unofficial visits and official visits. Official visits, you get 5 of them, and the school can pay for whatever they want. They pay, travel, hotel, food, all that kind of stuff. Unofficial visits, it's on your own dime. So to have all of these guys coming on officials, and you have to keep in mind where they're coming from. Bates, Venables, Valai, they've all got relationships in the Southeast. And OU has made a concerted effort to recruit the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, etc. If you look at the Clemson roster alone, you'll see a lot of IMG guys on the defense. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm echoing for some reason alone in an office on my pods. But anyways, you've got these guys attacking those states, and they're coming all the way from the Southeast. These are not places that are easy to travel. This isn't North Texas. You're not driving an hour to an unofficial visit. So that's where guys are coming up all the way from Florida, and they're investing time, money to get to these visits. I think that's what's important. You start to see guys travel from all over, and you're like, man, this is a real deal. And we have talent on talent. I mean, multiple 5-stars bringing themselves in. So CD Goat. So that's what I'm excited about, is really this visit weekend. We're not going to see the pops and the commits like we did with the last regime, because Brad Venables doesn't do that. Commit to me and then go take 3 or 4 other visits. When you commit to Brad Venables, you commit to Brad Venables. Like, you commit to Oklahoma, like, you are done. You shut down your visits. So it's great to get to know these, get to know these recruits, them to get to know the staff, get to see the place, everything like that, establish those foundations. But I know that he has talked dudes out of commitments if he didn't feel they were ready. And I don't think that this weekend's going to be any different. A lot of the visits, you get emotional. You're there with your buddies. You maybe guys are talking about committing and wanting to be all together and all this, but he's definitely a person. I think we'll see way less decommitments with the staff. And I think that's important, because you look at the 2022 wide receiver class. We had a stacked wide receiver class. Incredible class. Well, one brother gets offered by OSU, one, Luther Burden ends up in Missouri. You get these guys and you're like, well, we were full, and then we're like, we don't have any. But I think if we changed if we'd have had this policy under the last staff and said, hey, look, when you commit, you don't take any other visits because you have to be committed to us. Because if you're not committed to us, we're going to keep recruiting we're going to keep recruiting guys at your position. Like, come get your spot. And I think Venables is making those offers so much more valuable than they were before. And it's going to be a lot easier to build out classes because you're able to not worry about should we recruit Jalen Hale because we've got a full class, should we recruit whoever because we got a full class. Like, you don't have to worry about them decommitting in general. So anyways, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Is I don't think we'll see a lot of commitments pop from this weekend, but it is a hella important weekend.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of what you said, especially about the attitude Brent Venables brings to this and not expecting a lot of commitments early. If you look at how Clemson's classes were structured, it was very rare that they were just like leaping out ahead of everybody at this stage of the year, but that didn't stop them from just being a constant in the top 5, top 10 of recruiting classes. So I expect nothing less. And I really love what you said about unofficial visits, because this has been a position I've been taking for so long. Anytime that, like, for instance, if Bama is trying to get a kid and I see that he's taken all of his official visits and then he'll take one last unofficial visit to Alabama, I almost put my hands up just saying it's a go, because you did that on your own dime. Like, that means something. And I think we get so caught up in official that we kind of undervalue what an unofficial visit means. But that's not the case at all. And I really like that you pointed that out, because it highlights kids want to be here and they're doing something at their expense to go. And that's something that needs to be pointed out, especially with a new staff. And how many weekends already has Venables put together, right? Whether it's been something they've put together or like last weekend with FSP just showing up. Whether your staff is there or not, right? I did a video on that and someone commented and they said, well, none of the staff is there. And I was like, yeah, but that might only reinforce the point I'm trying to make. Like, that might make the point even more tangible for me, that the fact that they weren't there and still people were wanting to show up to see what it's all about. That means something, right? And so it's awesome to see everything happening recruiting wise. As far as individual nuggets, nothing groundbreaking. I mean, I think everything that I know is probably just known. I got to talk to Brandon Drums when I was out at the pylon. I talked to him about By Job, and By Job is wanted by absolutely everybody, and whoever gets him is going to be very, very lucky. But just his battle is going to be really fun to watch. Outside of that, I told you I talked to Cozart, and the last thing he left me with was, why not OU? That was the last thing he said before he ended up heading out from the weekend. So recruits are absolutely resonating right now. They're buzzing, so that's what you love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate the update. Personally, for me, like I told you before, Ty, obviously my last month has been a little crazy. So, while I'm in the loop on some things and Trav keeps me updated, which I appreciate, I just, it's nice to hear just what's going on. And hopefully, as Amaya gets older and, I get more sleep, I'm able to get into a little other things as well. Ty, question for you, man. I'll give you about five or so, 10 minutes to just give your spill on what you see Alabama doing in their spring practices and what you're looking forward to for your team this year.
Yeah, man, it's the Alabama revenge tours. They're a real thing, right? Like, there is, because of the attitude, and this is why I wanted to highlight what Travis said earlier, because it's so real. And it's something you alluded to, where you thought that there was a family atmosphere with Lincoln, and now you're seeing what a family atmosphere looks like with Brent Venables, and you're realizing, like, oh, well, maybe there were some things culturally we were missing here that we thought we had, but Brent Venables is showing us that we didn't actually have. And part of that is this process that Travis talked about. And your process is at an all-time high when you've tasted defeat, and especially in the manner of like being at that moment and then falling short. that team, they are rearing to go, and it's been obsessive from everything I've heard, as just people are absolutely obsessed with the Georgia game. They've rewatched it. I'm excited for the revenge tour, but there's a lot Alabama has to figure out in terms of what's the offensive line going to look like. It was an offensive line that struggled last year, and I don't think you're going to have more answers when you lose Evan Neal, right? Like that just creates so many questions for an offensive line that already had questions. Is there talent to fill the questions? Sure, there is, but we all know what it is for offensive linemen, right? Like it takes years sometimes for these dudes to really develop. And that's because in high school, this 5-star tackle could be going up against me. That's not a good look, right? Like he's going to ragdoll me across the line of scrimmage. And whereas in college football, there's a baseline of athleticism, right? Across the board, where at least this guy is so good. And on the offensive line, particularly, it just takes so long to develop because of the difference in strength, speed, technique, all used at the college game. So the offensive line's got to be figured out, but wide receiver as well, man. I mean, you talk about losing the kitchen sink at wide receiver. Mechie's gone, Jameson's gone, Slade Bolden's gone. A lot of talent, but there's just a lot of room for people to step up. And I did a video today talking about the sophomore class for Alabama because there's so much opportunity for these guys to step up, seize a position, and be able to move forward. And I mean, luckily Alabama had that recruiting class that before Texas A&M did theirs was the best recruiting class of all time. There's guys to take those strides, but it's going to need to happen in order for Alabama to get where they ultimately want to go. And I'm most concerned about the offensive line, right? Like that is an area where I'm absolutely something's got to happen. Because as great as Bryce is, it doesn't matter. If Bryce doesn't have the time, doesn't matter how great Jahmyr Gibbs is or how great Ajayi Hall is. If that offensive line isn't right, it's going to be a lot tougher than it needs to be. So a lot of excitement, but there is definite areas that have to come up to speed during the spring. And so that to me causes even more excitement, right? Like I'm just very, very ready for the season to get here. I'm very ready for A-Day to get here. Just there's a lot of questions I would like answered, and I'm a little bit impatient and waiting for those answers.
I think you bring up a good point on the offensive line, and it's one of the things you see in pro, especially. Not only is the competition different, but your bodies are completely different. I mean, you look at what a 18, 19-year-old body looks like compared to a 22-year-old body, especially when they get that big. It's completely different. I mean, not and also you could put a freshman wide receiver out there, and if he knows the plays and he's got he's where he's supposed to be, then quarterback's going to hit him. Having to work as a unit as the offensive line does, and the defensive line doesn't even need to because they can stunt, do whatever they want, find different. They just got to meet their man. But to really work as a unit is really, I mean, you need the size and you need the time. So, and you don't know behind the scenes, right? Because it's like we've had Bray Walker sitting on our bench, 5-star guy, biggest guy on the team, and it's like, man, a lot of people are like, how's he doing? Like, I don't know. He's got to grow up a little bit, like get stronger. He's got to work with the units because it's not like an easy like 7-on-7 type situation where you can just see a wide receiver run routes and you're like, okay, well I can see that this wide receiver is a talented guy. I can see him do his vertical. I can see him in drills and everything like that. But offensive line is different because they're relying on being able to do it as a unit. So you can't even look at him in drills and be like, oh man, that's our dude right there. Like, so yeah, bringing up the offensive line, it just takes so much time and trust in your coaching staff, and just hope that they get it worked out because it's not a quick fix. If you have a bad offensive line, it takes a long time to get those guys cycled up and out to improve it. So.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when you lose Evan Neal off of an offensive line that already has questions. And I'd feel much better if we returned Evan Neal. I would sit here and I'd probably be talking about a different tune about how and I still feel and maybe this is wrong, and I'll let y'all tell me if it is wrong. I'm still unbelievably confident, and I think that's because of what Saban has created, where at the end of the day, I do feel like, okay, well, yeah, I can have these justifiable worries, but Saban and them will figure it out. Maybe that's naive of me, but at some point, I do put faith in Saban, but there's only so much that can be done if it's not ready. I just hope they're ready. I mean, who knows? We'll see, but there's a lot of talent, a lot of 5 stars. I just hope someone steps up.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's you hope they do, but 5-star, I feel like offensive line, maybe you have that once in a generation type guy, but like you don't know. There's nothing really to base off of. Even you look at the skill positions, they can go to 7-on-7. Offensive line can't. And if you don't go to camps, like what are you working with? And all their camp work is usually one-on-one drills anyways. And yeah, very, very, very hard position to coach and to assess from a scouting position.
Well, it's interesting, man. Like it's always so fascinating to me how at the very end of the recruiting cycles, you see so much movement, particularly from your offensive line and defensive line guys in recruiting. And it's because it's one of the first time we've gotten to see them in their all-American environments. And you have offensive linemen repping up against defensive linemen who are both, we know what they are, right? And you've seen offensive linemen drop when those all-American games happen. But conversely, we've seen defensive linemen and offensive linemen really raise through there because we've seen that, oh, okay, well, you're an absolute dude. I think the other thing that makes me interested is a new offensive line coach on top of already having an offensive line that was questionable. I mean, his offensive line for Kentucky was much better than before he got there, so I hope that carries over, but it has to be shown. And so it's a lot of questions, but sometimes questions are fun.
Yeah, and then you get into the situations where, okay, could he coach Kentucky? Could he coach 3 stars up to playing like 4 stars? Or does he know how to deal with 5 stars and be able to raise them up? I think that's something that we dealt with Grinch, and he was coaching players at Washington State up to a level to where they outplayed their rankings, if you will, their rating, if you will. But then you get talent at Oklahoma, and you're like, well, he should now be able to elevate us up to, if he got Washington State from here to here, then he should get OU's talent from here to here. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes there are coaches that are better suited to coach underdogs, if you will. We get boards that say it all the time. I'd rather have a 3-star with a big heart than a 5-star. It's like, okay. I mean, no, you wouldn't. But, I mean, you wouldn't win a lot of games, but it's fine. So maybe there's some guys that are just great at preaching that kind of underdog mentality. Maybe those guys work better together. So that's why I'm so excited with some of our hires being from blue blood type, and maybe not even blue blood. Clemson's obviously new blood, not blue blood. But you get those guys, and it's like these guys are used to coaching extremely talented players to be the best that they can be. They aren't having to really get blood out of a turnip.
I'm gonna put this comment up here because I think it's funny. That's true. That's
You're
true,
not
Ty.
wrong, Kirby. You're certainly not wrong, and I recognize that for sure. But at the end of the day, there's new Ferraris that come out every year, and we need to talk about those new Ferraris as well.
Hey, and we didn't. Hey, they won as many national titles last year as we did.
Exactly.
So
exactly. True.
And that's why you guys are as good as you are. You keep the hunger. So Saban keeps the hunger. It's not good enough, right? That's one of the things I remember. Like one of the first videos OU football posted of Venables talking to his team. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It ain't enough. He's yelling, get you pumped up.
Well, and we heard that from Jalen Hurts, right? I mean,
yeah.
in record-setting performances, he'd talk to Holly Rowe after a game, and he's like, she'd be like, "Will you smile?" He's like, "No, we're not playing championship football. Like we're not."
I love that guy.
Like we're not where we need to be. Like, and it's frustrating. So you get that, but you get it in a head coach, well, now you're in much better shape. So, no, but that's where I see that parallel a lot was Jalen knew what a championship team looked like. He has a ring. So Venables the same way. You know what it looks like. Lincoln doesn't know what it looks like. Grinch doesn't know what it looks like. Clark Stroud doesn't know what it looks like. Thad Turnipseed knows what it looks like. Coach Bates knows what it looks like. Venables does. I mean, that's the thing is you get guys that can recognize it, and they aren't just trying to go towards something that is unrecognizable to them.
Yeah. Hey, so real quick, we'll be getting into as the spring goes on, like I talked about last week. Trav and I will probably be getting into pieces of different position groups, different players, even especially as videos and whatnot. Insider info comes out about the practices. We'll talk about those. But I did want to ask you guys, what's the position group that you feel like one needs the most work from last year, and two will kind of do the most, if that makes sense, will kind of have the biggest jump, right? I think last week we did what player will. I'm wondering if there's a position group you feel like will make the biggest jump, and that may be, I don't want to say it's going to be an easy answer. We may all have the same answer for that one. But the first one, what's a position group you think needs to take a jump for your first one? And then the second one is, which one do you think actually will?
So, yeah, I'll start. The one that I think needs to take a jump, I actually think OU's in a very analogous position on the offensive line to Alabama, right? Where the offensive line was inconsistent. It had its moments where you looked at it and you were like, this is the offensive line I've been wanting all year. And then the very next play, like my Tide's offensive line, you're right back to what the hell just happened. And I don't think it gets easier like my Tide when you lose talent off of an already inconsistent offensive line. So that to me is where if OU can figure that out, and luckily you have Bill Bedenbaugh, right? Like if there's a guy you're gonna put faith in to do this, he's certainly at the top of that list. That's probably the area I'm looking at the hardest, as far as a jump being made. And it's because of what it contributes to elsewhere, right? Like if your offensive line is solid, what that allows Levy to run in his offense, and specifically with Dylan Gabriel, I mean, it unlocks everything. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think since I agree with him on the which one needs to, I'm going to pivot to which one I think will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, the one that will be safeties specifically. Secondary as a whole, sure, but safeties specifically. You've got Brandon Hall back there under a Venables defense. You've got more talent there now. You've got bigger bodies there now. And you've got freshmen that will really push you. Not only do you have Trey Morrison coming in, who is the most experienced player on Oklahoma's team now, with 44 starts. He is the most experienced, so Trey Morrison will, I assume, take that safety position opposite of Key Lawrence. Key Lawrence obviously showed us a lot last year. He's already come back bigger, stronger, with him kind of being the master key, as he had been kind of dubbed, and being able to play anywhere in the secondary. If we get consistent corner play, then those safeties can really take a step up. I know Pat Fields, I believe, led the team in snaps last year. I've talked to him about this. He knew that he shouldn't be leading the team in snaps. And that's the thing. You need to get those rotations. I think when you look at guys like a Jaden Rowe and an RSJ and those guys that are big, strong, and fast. I mean, RSJ jumped up from ranked like 1,200th in the 247 up to like 129th. Third ranked guy in the class, All-American, didn't give up a pass in the game, in the All-American game, won the speed competition of the All-American game, and the dude is yoked. You get guys like that, you guys like Jaden Rowe, and all of a sudden there's so much more pressure from the freshmen for those guys, the Trey Morrisons of the world and the Key Lawrences of the world to really perform well, and they're doing it with better coaches.
Yeah, I completely agree. My answer is one and the same. Which one I think needs to, and which one I think will. And me and Matt Hayes are on the same page here. I think the linebackers need
That was
to.
going to be that was my original, but I was like, I don't know. I'm going to go elsewhere.
Yeah. They were by far, in my opinion, the worst position that we had on the team last year. As bad as the corners were at times, and there were issues with injuries at that level, but the linebackers were just inconsistent. Couldn't guard anybody in space. Consistently miss holes. It was a mess. And not that Brian Odom is not a good linebackers coach. I do think he's a good linebackers coach. However, Venables, I think we could say, is probably one of the best, if not the best, linebackers coach in all of college football. And so, as Matt Hayes said, that's something that you can almost bank will be fixed immediately. And not only nothing to say out of Venables, but also the talent that is continuing to funnel into that position. Danny Stutzman was a freshman last year that showed amazing flashes. You have Jaren Connect, who, guy's a physical freak already. You still got Kobe McKenzie over there. I don't think Guebe was going to be there. It sounds like, from all intents and purposes, he's probably going to potentially slide down to that D-line position. But even still, you have talent at that position. It's just are they going to be coached up? And I think you feel like they can be and will be with Brent Venables and the track record that he has. So I believe they needed to take that jump. And I think that they will take that jump for sure. That's my opinion.
I definitely don't think that linebackers is a wrong answer at all. I mean, it makes sense when you look at who's going to be coaching it. It makes sense with the talent, the coaching. So yeah, that's an answer I'd buy all day.
Yeah. Okay, so hey, we got about 18 or so minutes left. Try to keep it to that hour mark. Let's go ahead and jump into the chat. Y'all get in here with us, ask questions. We'll go ahead and post it up. Ask anything about the spring, ask anything about any three of us that you want us to answer. You can ask us personally, whatever. There's one real quick. Who do you guys see being the number one wide receiver this year for OU?
Mims.
Mims?
Yeah, I think that's the easy answer. He's a freshman All-American. He was unhappy with his role last year, being rotated out so much. You look at Levy's system, and you look at how he targets a top guy. I've been harping on this since we started this podcast. Lincoln spread the ball out, gave everybody on the team seemingly. I think I got 50 targets last year. Everybody got seemingly the same amount of targets. You had Jaden Hazelwood lead the team with 38 targets, and then it just went down from there. When you look at the leading receiver in Levy's offense last year, I believe he had 75 catches, something like that. You look at Ohio State, it's got three receivers at the top. Obviously, the best positional group room in the country last year was either Georgia's defensive line or Ohio State's wide receiver room, and I would lean Ohio State's wide receiver room. I mean, Jamison Williams couldn't get snaps there, and he's one of the best receivers in the country. Yeah. So with that, they get bunched up at the top, right? They've all got 80 catches. Ole Miss leading receiver has mid-70s catches. So Oklahoma, in this alleged high-flying offense that Lincoln Riley has, our leading receiver has 38 catches. That doesn't make any sense. Sounds like something Army has. So with us, it's like he's going to be showcased in this, but can't sleep on Theo Weiss. Theo stayed in town for spring break with Dylan Gabriel, and those two worked out alone all day, getting reps in, getting on the same page. And Theo, after that foot, Dylan's agent told me afterwards, we were at dinner, and he said, look, you look at the receivers he had at UCF, and there's some fantastic ones, namely one in Buffalo that had a heck of a playoff game against Kansas City. But he looked at it, and because Dylan's agent was with him at UCF, he was the director of player personnel there. He came and he said, "I've never you don't see guys like that look like Theo Weiss. Like Dylan's never thrown to guys like this." So when you look at that, it's like, okay, I think Theo's going to have a massive year. I think Mims is going to be the number one receiver, but man, I'm buying as much Theo Weiss stock as the market is willing to sell me.
And if I may, one of the things that's so interesting, as Travis pointed out, not only does Lebby get receivers more touches, and when you hear that, like you said, you think it's a stat out of arming, right? Seeing Mims only get 30 plus touches. The craziest thing is not only does he get his receivers more touches, he spreads the ball amongst his running backs at a higher rate than Lincoln did. Like when you break down the rate of carries Ole Miss running backs had, they were statistically like spreading the ball out much more effectively and allowing for their running game to flourish. So, I mean, that's why I'm so interested in what Levy's going to do with y'all. And I think the Weiss point is great. Weiss was probably one of my favorite kids out of that class in general. Not even wide receivers, one of my favorite players in that class in general.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here's another one real quick. And Trav and I kind of answered this one last week. I think we more said spring than year, but we can go ahead and answer it again. I don't know if you remember yours, Trav, but what player do you think will break out this season?
Dylan Gabriel. I'm kidding. I won't take the low hanging fruit as the starting quarterback. I do think the starting quarterback will have a breakout year. Man, I'm gonna take somebody nobody's gonna think of, because we're gonna get the Downs, we're gonna get the Stutzmans, we're gonna get these guys. I think Jordan Kelly. He's right now slated to start next to Jalen Redmond, which is not a name that people really knew last year. He dealt with some injuries mid-year, and had a great bowl game. Him, Stripling, those guys, the defensive line had a great bowl game. And it says something to me that through the workout so far, he's slated to start. And that could change throughout spring. There's no doubt about that. I'm not calling my opening roster spots by any means, but it does two things. It shows me that a guy that had kind of been lost in the depth chart a little bit really did get a fair shake at the job. He's also put on a lot of good muscle, looking good. Really excited about Bates's 20 different formations that he's got on the defensive line versus the 4 or 5 that they had under Tibbs. But it also shows me the depth. I know there's a ton of talent behind him. So if this guy that was maybe neutral when we thought the defensive line above it, if he's an add, if he's a positive, and you've got guys like Kelvin Gilliam, who's put on a lot of really good weight. You've obviously got the Isaiah Coes of the world, who's built like a refrigerator. Like you've got those guys that are back there, so you've got plenty of depth. So I figured I'd go with somebody that nobody was thinking I'd go with. So
I need to see a picture. I need to see a picture of Isaiah Coe immediately. I mean, I haven't seen one, but just knowing what he looked like last year already, and knowing that he has Schmitty now, I just need to see it. I need to see it. Go ahead, Ty.
So mine is actually Stutzman, right? And it's probably not super surprising, but for a lot of the same reasons Indy you said, and for what Matt Hayes said in the chat as well. I mean, you're talking about Brent Venables as the linebacker coach and someone who showed flashes last year. Another year in the system does everybody wonders, but especially when you get a coach of the caliber Brent Venables working with you. I'm really, really interested to see what the inside linebacker position is going to look like for OU.
Yeah, and to Stutzman, that point, early in the year last year, went to dinner with one of the players after a game, and he'd been there a while, and I asked him, I said, hey, look, what player on the current roster, and this is back when Spencer was starting and playing fine, and Caleb was on the roster, obviously. I said, hey, what player currently on the roster will be the future highest draft pick. And he did not hesitate. He said Danny Stutzman. And I was shocked. I was like, not Spencer Rattler at the time, favored to be, top 5 pick or first quarterback off the board. Absolutely. Caleb, the 5-star phenom that was behind him. Nope, none of them. Danny Stutzman was his answer. And I was like, this is a guy that practices, plays with him, everything like that. So I was like, that's interesting. Keep an eye on this guy. So,
yeah,
a little anecdote.
Yeah. And mine is definitely Ethan Downs. I've been on the Downs train for a while. I just think, I look at him last year and immediately I go to, a TJ Watt type of player. Like you just see it in him. And he is early on as a freshman was doing a lot and just, again, looked different. And so you get him Schmitty, you get him Miguel Chavis, you get him Todd Bates. Like, there's just the sky's the limit, is what I'll say. And I can't believe we're going to get 2 more years of him. And more than anything, he's going to fit in to what Brent Venables wants to do culturally, and he's an Oklahoma kid. So it's all there for him, and he cares. So I think he's going to have a big, big, big time year. How excited are y'all to see that OU will presumably be participating in special teams for the first time in 5 years? Look, we got the guys. I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to see it happen. I want to see us run back kicks and not just fair catching. Okay? That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I was, sitting there at the Texas game, and you're seeing us catch kickoffs and punts like with a lot of room to run, and it's just once it's off the foot, it's a fair catch, and I'm like, go, like it's just such a you're just giving up. Like it's so soft. Like it's like try and make a play, go make something happen. Try and flip the field, try and give your offense, a spark, give your sideline a spark, anything like that. Like just submitting to, okay, I guess we'll just take the ball wherever you kick it. Like, it just seems such a weak move.
Yeah, that's look, I'm a Bama fan, so I know the importance of special teams. That kick 6 still plays in my head, right? So it's
I love the video. And nothing to get, it's just a great video. Oh my God, Auburn's gonna win the football game.
That was painful.
Pain.
I try and forget, but it's burned.
Now that's your for at least for me, I won't speak for Trav. For me, the 2018 Rose Bowl is my that's burned into my brain for the rest of my life. That's that for me. The kick 6 for you is the 2018 Rose Bowl for me.
Yeah, then it's weird, man. You look at it, and it was a few years later. Bama's playing Auburn, and a freak play happens to just completely alter the college football season as well. So it's Auburn just I get shivers thinking about him.
Yes, this man asked the right question. I've been harping on it all week.
This man,
where do you think Baker will end up? I think Baker's going to end up with the Seahawks. Personally, I do think they'll end up trading him. If they release him, I think a lot of teams will go after him. But I just gotta say, I'm sick of Browns fans. I'm just done with them. I just like Ty. I don't know if you've seen this. Like we had a full on Twitter war last night between Sooner Twitter and Browns Twitter. Like I wish I was joking.
It's been all week.
Big wigs, right? Like I don't know if you know who Gab Gowdy is. She's blue check mark, Cleveland Browns personality. But some of our Sooner girls on Sooner Twitter were going after her and still are. And it was a mess. And then we got random Browns accounts, random OU accounts just throwing nukes, haymakers. It was crazy. But yeah, it's just sickening the way they're treating Baker. Like it pisses me off. It does. I won't say anything else about it. I think he's going to Seattle. Eventually, I think that's where we end up.
Well, it's crazy, Travis. Right before you got in here, I was telling JP, I'm not as in tune with the NFL as I used to be. It's because when I started doing this channel, like there's so much to college football. There's so much for me to learn. Like I've just thrown myself into college football so extensively that like I've just completely neglected the NFL. And because of that, the first thing I said to JP was like, I've got to be missing something. The Cleveland Browns were in the dumps not long ago, and they're treating Baker like a pariah. And like, so the thing I was like, I've got to have been missing something, like in my just not.
Yeah, like he ruined the great thing they had going on in Cleveland.
He ruined our franchise.
Patriots, right? Like
Somebody said it was the coaches that turned them around. I was like, which ones? There were 4 head coaches in the time that he was there. How did the coaches turn around if they kept getting fired?
That's a terrible argument. That's just an abhorrent. So I genuinely feel like I've missed something. I don't understand at all the vitriol they're using when it comes to Baker because they're shooting themselves in the foot. This is the thing I don't get, right? And Travis, JP, y'all are going to understand this. Every time they go out and drag Baker, whether they're doing so intentionally or not, right? But his stock is going down, which means they get less value for him. I do not understand for the life of me who is doing this for the Browns, but if they were going out there pumping Baker full of sunshine every day, they may have gotten something for him if they didn't want him on their team. But you're devaluing your starting quarterback, and that's only going to hurt you. He's going to go somewhere and be good.
Here's the problem that they're dealing with. This isn't a typical situation where they signed somebody and they just want to get value for somebody else. First of all, once they signed Deshaun, and once they had a bit of a little bit of a hint that they needed to trade Baker before the Deshaun trade went public. If they would have done that, they would have got better value because it would have been them trading their starting quarterback, not, hey, they're going to get rid of him anyways, so we can just wait for the price to come down. That's one. 2 is they're in such a PR mess that as long as they keep dragging Baker, Deshaun looks better. Like if they keep dragging Baker, it makes them seem like they had no choice but to bring in the guy with 22 civil cases against him. So this character assassination is just so they can sneak Deshaun in the back door. Because if they get the fan base to hate Baker so badly, then they will be so excited and over the moon. All the people that were on the fence about Deshaun or on the, as a related to Baker, the PR move, this is all PR stuff. That's why this stuff is leaking out about, OBJ might come back. No, OBJ is not going back to Cleveland. Like it's literally just being leaked out. They're trying to make it seem like all these players now want to come back to Cleveland and come to Cleveland to be with Deshaun, when that's simply not the case. Like they cut OBJ. Like he's not coming back. So they're putting all this out there so they can turn everybody against Baker. So they're like, oh well, thank goodness we got Deshaun. That Baker was really the problem, and Deshaun wanted to come to a big time winner like us. And that's really the issue. If they'd have been signing somebody just to sign somebody, like if they'd have been bringing in Russell Wilson, like this wouldn't have happened. Like because you don't need to, like Denver didn't need anybody to hate Drew Lock. But because they don't have to distract, they don't have to pull any PR spin, anything like that. So, but they need the fan base to turn on Baker. I personally think, and because I know the original question, where did he end up? This is what I know. We all have what we want to happen. This is what I think legitimately should happen. We all remember when he was at Oklahoma. We remember that OSU game. Hollywood. We remember big time deep throws, big time little play action, come out to the side and just let her rip. He gets to the NFL, a guy that was throwing 50 times a game, 60 times a game, blah, blah, blah. He gets to the NFL, and now he's the guy that, we need him to throw the least amount of times possible. We cannot afford to let Baker throw. We can't, that doesn't make any sense. The whole reason that he was the Heisman, the whole reason that he was a Heisman finalist 3 times, the whole reason he broke the passing efficiency rating, when he was there. Obviously, it's been broken since. But the reason he did all that, the reason he went number 1 overall, because he could sling it and he could put the ball all over the yard. So he gets to the NFL and they're like, whoa, we need to get him to just hand the ball off. That doesn't make any sense. So what I think you do, and I didn't think about it until today when a different deal went down, give me Baker in Miami and Tua to Seattle. Tua's making 8. You could ship Tua to Seattle. Nobody's got a lot of faith in Tua. The Dolphins already know they're moving off of him next year. If they keep him, ship him off to Seattle. He's only making 8.5, something like that. Sure, you can take part of the salary and have it paid by different teams. Cleveland at this point might have to take some of Baker's salary and just pay it because they're only paying Deshaun $1 million in that first year of his contract. So they still do have room to pay Baker if they need to. So take him some of that. And then, because why would you put Tyreek Hill in an offense with Tua? Tua can't get the ball downfield. So you got Waddle and Hill. Tua can't get the ball downfield. Teddy Bridgewater, they signed him. Trust me, current Vikings fan, former Vikings quarterback. Teddy doesn't have a rocket by any means. You get Baker in there, and of all Baker's flaws, the one thing that he's not short on is arm strength. So you put him in Miami, ship Tua to Seattle. Now you've got something that can work, and you got a guy that can open up. That can unlock the offense that Tyreek is going to be able to unlock. Because right now, you bought a stick shift Ferrari, and you got a guy that doesn't know how to drive stick. Like, so you need a guy that can push that car to the limits. You need a guy with a cannon, and Tua ain't it.
I have to wonder, though, because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't his yards per attempt actually higher his last season when he broke Baker's efficiency number than Baker's were? I mean, Tua was pushing the ball all down the field.
Yeah, but he was
Miami
pushing the
has
ball
done
down the
him
field.
justice.
No, I agree, but he was pushing the ball down the field, but then you get the hip injuries, you get that, and since then he hasn't been able to. I mean, your power comes from your hips, right? So when you get a quarterback that has bad hips, I mean, you can't get the ball down the field. So
that's a great point. I try and block the hip injury out of my mind,
yeah,
but that's a great point, actually.
Yeah, just like people trying to block the torn labrum out of last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's such a real point. I completely forgot about that hip injury, but the second you said it, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, yeah, that's a great point. That is pretty damning. Yeah.
And I don't think that I don't think it resets the timeline for Miami at all. I think you can bring Baker in. If he plays decent, you can franchise him. If he plays well, you can sign him. If he plays poorly, then he plays poorly, you got a bad record, you can go draft a quarterback anyways. Like, so the experiment, I would rather, if I were going to experiment a year, I'd rather not have a lame duck in Tua that, I mean, I'm not sure that Tua is set for a breakout year, especially just like he has not been the same since the hip. It's just, and Miami hasn't done him any favors, but at the same time, it was like, oh, he's getting Waddle, he's going to blow up. Like, it just hasn't been working down there. So it's like, if you're going to have an experiment, you might as well have the experiment with a guy that can at least open up the offense downfield with your new $30 million a year wide receiver. So that's where I'd like to see Baker go. I think that's maybe the best option. And I do think that front office is willing to make moves immediately because of that whole, hey, we're going to pay Brian Flores to lose games thing. So I think they're in a unique situation to try and make splashes, overpay receivers, bringing guys to try and at least turn the narrative around that, hey, oh, no, here at Miami, we try and win. We're not trying to pay dudes to lose football games. We're here to win. Forget what Brian Flores is saying. So that's my idea on where Baker ends up, where he should end up, to be honest. I'm not sure he does, but I think it makes a lot of sense for everybody.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Did you say where you thought he was going to end up, Ty?
I didn't. And if I had to guess, I think the Seahawks, both of those are really interesting, right? And I hadn't really thought most into that. I've heard some smoke to Pittsburgh, but like I said,
You gotta get released
They're
though.
they're not cutting him.
and that was my thing is I didn't know how that would work.
They're not cutting him. And that's a very much it's just media stuff. It's I'm being told that Pittsburgh would snatch him up if they cut him. Like, no, if there's a team wanting to snatch him up, they would work with them on a deal. Like, that is PR. That's nothing else. He's not going to the Steelers because they're not cutting Baker.
And that's why I was so confused when I saw that. I didn't even read the articles. I was just like, just from a logical standpoint, I don't know how that one's gonna work. But if I had to say where he should go, I think it'd be very interesting if he were to go to either of the two teams you said. But also, I look at a team almost like the Panthers, right? And they need somebody in that position. There's a few teams, anybody that needs a quarterback that knows how to work, right? Like there's so many organizations that need someone at the top that know how to work and are fine with grinding. And that's what Baker.
You could Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones in New York. You look at Seattle. You look at like there's probably 7 or 8 teams where Baker would be an upgrade at the quarterback position. Yeah.
And because it's kind of hard to narrow it down to one, especially for someone like myself who's so out of the loop in the NFL. But like, there's no way you can convince me that Sam Darnold is better than Baker. Like, there's no argument in the world that will convince me that. So,
and it's crazy. It's just like Travis said, it's a PR thing. Just doggone Baker, forget about Deshaun because all these shows, besides, really, probably you could say besides Skip Bayless because he's riding for Baker right now. Everybody else, they're essentially like, there's no market for Baker. Baker's trash. Nobody wants him. He wouldn't be an upgrade. He'd maybe be the same. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how? Like, what are we looking at here? Like, and that's the thing that's frustrating is like, it has Baker been elite? No. And, the biggest OU fan that loves Baker should be able to tell you that, right, with their own eyes. No. Has he shown flashes? Yes. Has he shown enough to say he should be a starter in this league and has upside? Yes. He won a freaking playoff game with the Cleveland Browns last year, like 14 months ago, right? But we're acting like he's trash now. It's just crazy. This is the craziest thing. One of the craziest things I've seen in the NFL in a long time. I don't understand it. But
you want to know what's crazy to me, bro? We got 100 people in here and we got 19 likes. I need y'all to go hit that like button expeditiously.
I've said that. Hit the like button. If you're in here, you need to hit the like button in the chat.
I broke out the big vocabulary for y'all this evening. Superfluous syntax for y'all just so you can hit the like button.
Expeditiously. Hey, let's do one more quick question and then we'll get out of here. I like this one. Will Jaden Gibson make the starting rotation in the fall?
Travis, I'll let you take that one first.
No. Look, Jaden Gibson, he's a tree. He's 6'5", 6'6". He's massive. But again, we go back to what we said earlier about the wide receiver room and rotation. It is going to be harder to crack this starting rotation than it would have in years past because when you look at it, you've got Theo and Mims are obvious starters.
Lots.
And Drake Stoops is going to likely be the third most targeted player on the team, if I had to guess. You got guys like Cody Jackson, who I imagine will have quite the expanded role. But if I had to pick a guy that was outside of the 2 locks that I mentioned, it would absolutely be Jaleel Farouk. He really showed us a lot of good stuff in the bowl game, and apparently he has been a man on a mission in the off season, through winter workouts. He looks good. He's put on good weight. He's strong. I think he's ready to get out of the he's just Caleb Williams' buddy shadow, because many people thought, well, wherever Caleb goes, Jaleel's going to go because they came in together. And Jaleel said, no, let's pump the brakes on that. I've got something to prove here. And so I am extremely bullish on Jaleel Farouk. Jaden Gibson long term, obviously, I think he's going to have a great career. I do think it's easy to kind of fall in love with the 6'5" guy, because you think, oh, well, you just throw it up. He's going to come down with every catch. Easiest offense in the world. Just throw it high, whatever, right? But it's not typically how it works. So otherwise, Jeffrey Mead would be in the NFL right now.
He was on the same wavelength. I was thinking about Jeffrey Mead in my head at the same time.
Yep. So, anyways, I would be very concerned if Jaden Gibson cracked the starting rotation this year, because that means we've had injuries that we weren't ready for. Because I don't think he's quite going to be ready. Heck, if he just balls out of control and proves me wrong, I'll be the first one to get up here and say I was wrong and eat my crow. But I think if there's a guy that is under the radar that is going to crack that rotation, it would be Jaleel Farouk, followed very closely by Cody Jackson.
Yeah, ironic you said Farouk. I have a video coming out tomorrow about 3 sophomores for the Oklahoma Sooners that I think people need to be really watching, and Jaleel Farouk leads that charge. Because, you saw how he finished against Oregon. What was it, 20.1 yards per reception against Oregon? That's just, you imagine that with what Jeff Lebby does, with the presence of Mims, with the presence of Weiss. You just love it. You just absolutely love the prospect of that. As far as the question goes about Gibson, could we see him? Sure. But I completely agree with Travis to where it's like, if you're seeing him in the starting rotation, that's probably an indication that guys went down. Very talented wide receiver, but you're talking about a very talented wide receiver room, right?
And also you could have it in the red zone, something like that. That's where he would be used most likely. If you need a fade, if you need a jump ball in the end zone, something like that, I could see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do believe we will see him in situations. I think when you have someone 6'5", as long as he understands route running, enough of Levy's liking, that's going to be fine. We'll see him in spots. But Travis hit the nail on the head, man. Jaleel Farouk, I think, is poised to take that next step.
Yeah. I agree with both of your analysis. I think that it's okay. Jaden Gibson is a true freshman. It's perfectly normal, especially at a program. If OU wants to be the type of program that can go into the SEC and win consistently, you probably won't see a lot of true freshmen. Let's just be real.
Ja'Cory Brooks was a 5-star for Alabama, and the only reason he started getting the reps he did is because we had injuries at wide receiver, right? Yep. And he got the opportunity. That was a 5-star kid from IMG at Alabama who's been churning out wide receivers. Like, it's going out of style. It's a freshman. Yeah. Plenty of time.
Correct. Exactly. So I think like you said, we'll see him in the spring game, see what we can do. But in the fall, like everybody said, if we're all healthy, I think he won't play that much this year, and that's a good thing. He'll be able to continue to develop, get stronger, and whatnot, and look towards the future. So, hey, guys, thanks for coming out. If you've been in the chat with us, appreciate y'all hanging out with us tonight. We've got about 100 y'all in here. Appreciate y'all.
Like the video.
Yes, please. If you are currently in the chat, just then take 2 seconds, just go and like the video. And if you're watching,
you nothing. It's free. It's free tonight only. Tonight only. It's free.
Tonight only. If you're watching this throughout the week, same thing. A lot of y'all don't stay up this late. Sometimes that's okay. And you catch us throughout the week. If you're watching it, go ahead and like it right now. As I just said it, click. All right. Ty, man, as always, brother, we appreciate you coming on here. You're always welcome, man. I got to make sure I can get to your live stream on Mondays. It's been tough the last couple months, you know what I mean? But hopefully I can hop on one here pretty soon.
I'll tell you what, I want both of y'all to come on here soon. So we'll get together over Twitter because Travis, I've got so many questions for you about NIL. Someone with a legal background like I have and what you're doing, I'm so fascinated. And I know there's so much I don't understand about it. And so whenever you get the chance, man, we'll have to get together and iron something out. I'd love to have both of you
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, whenever you want.
Yeah.
My nights are opening up a little bit. I'm pivoting out of restaurant operations and going full blown audience rent because things are picking up quickly. So yeah, so I'm down to talk whenever.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
Yes, sir. And Trav, my partner in crime, as always, appreciate you. Thanks for being here. You know,
absolutely.
Right,
I'm in the white wall of the office today, so
I know he's gotten a little bit more bland the last couple of weeks.
Normally, I know. I mean,
he'd be in an igloo, or he'd be in a kitchen, or he'd be a floating head.
Well, my laptop I always leave up here, and it's funny because I got all the way back out to South Tulsa, and I was like, crap. I was like, I forgot my laptop, and then one of my buddies was like, "Hey, you want to meet for a drink downtown?" I'm like, I got to go down there to get my laptop anyways for the podcast. So I was like, I'll just hang out till then. So yeah, I don't need to move around the laptop nearly as much as I used to.
That's good. All right, fellas, y'all have a great night. Everybody in the chat, we appreciate y'all. We will see y'all here at this exact same time next week. Boomer.
Oh, actually, sorry. I will not be. I can't do next Wednesday. I will be courtside seeing Mr. Trey Young play the Oklahoma City Thunder. Good news for all of you Thunder fans. Dylan Gabriel is 100% focused on football because originally Dylan was going with me. But he's like, look, I need to focus on football. It's in spring, because the Thunder wanted him to be courtside, right? Dylan wanted to introduce the quarterback, all that kind of stuff. And so he was like, you know what? I need to be here with my guys, but I thought that was pretty cool. You don't see a lot of young guys say, "Oh, you know what? I don't think it's a good move for me to be going courtside of the Thunder game. I just want to make sure that I'm focused on football, focused on getting to know my guys, working with my guys, and making sure we're ready for the season." So I thought that was some people would enjoy. But of all my backgrounds. I might pop in, maybe at halftime next week if you want to do the show and get a special guest. Maybe I'll pop in from courtside with my AirPods on and talk a little bit.
Hey, we'll figure it out either way.
Hey, I'll go from bland to really stepping it up.
Really stepping it up courtside. Like, oh yeah, that'd be hilarious.
I'll get Trey on. I'll be like, Trey, call timeout, man. I got questions for you.
Yeah. Come on over here. Okay, no, that'd be dope. No, but regardless, we'll figure out whether we do it Wednesday or not. We'll be back at some point next week. We'll put it out. But you guys know us. We roll with the punches, roll with the flow. So love y'all. Peace.